The Four Horsemen HD, hour 1 of 2, discussions with Richard Dawkins. We got Daniel Dennett, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, brilliant minds, critical thinking, new atheist, if you will. They have made serious impact, I think, in the world of critical thinking and a lot of people who question their religion. I think these guys have made some common sense arguments to make people really reason their way out of thinking with faith and thinking more with science and reasoning and things like that. Let's continue where we left off and see how this goes.
It's been hijacked, hasn't it?
It's also. I'm afraid. I think it's a deformity or a shortcoming in the human personality, frankly, because the religion keeps stressing how humble it is and how meek it is and how accepting and almost to the point of self-abnegation is. But actually it makes extraordinarily arrogant claims for these moments. It says that I suddenly realized that the universe was all about me.
Yes.
And felt terrifically humble about it. Come on, we can laugh people out of that, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
and I think we should. I am so tired of the if only Professor Dennett had the humility to blah, blah, blah. Yes. Humility. And this from people of breathtaking arrogance.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I shove one aside, saying, "Just don't mind me. I'm on an errand for God."
Yeah, right.
Well, this is a point.
Modest is that?
This is the point I think we should return to, this notion of the arrogance of science, because there is no discourse which enforces humility more rigorously. I mean, scientists, in my experience, are the first people to say they don't know. I mean, you get.
I think of Joshua Bowen, though he's an Assyriologist. Every time you ask him a question, he's not sure. Outside of my field, I'm not sure. He's very quick to be humble about that.
If you get a scientist to start talking off his area of specialization, he or she immediately starts hedging his bet, saying, I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's someone in the room who knows more about this than me, and of course, all the data's not in. I mean, this is the mode of discourse in which we are most candid about the scope of our ignorance.
Well, actually, a lot of academics come up with that kind of false modesty. But I do know.
Well, yes, it is.
Many's the historian who says, "No, I yield." It's just someone.
No, but any academic should do that.
Yes, they should.
The thing about religious people is that they recite the Nicene Creed every week, which says precisely what they believe. There are 3 gods, not one. The Virgin Mary, Jesus died, went to what was his down for 3 days, and then came up again. I mean, in precise detail, and yet they have the gall to accuse us of being overconfident and of not knowing what it is to doubt.
And I don't think many of them ever let themselves contemplate the question which I think scientists ask themselves all the time: what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
What if I'm wrong?
So many of them don't, or they see it as a sin. A lot of them see it as a problem to lean into doubt, but they never allow. They think it is a problem to truly follow the doubt where the conclusion leads. Usually they play with doubt. At most, they'll play with doubt, but they play with doubt and remain where they're at, within the faith, claiming with the tradition, claiming the belief system still, and not follow the doubt consistently out of the very thing that they are starting to go, I don't think this happened. I don't think this is true.
I mean, it's just not part of their repertoire.
Actually, would you mind if I disagree with you about that? I mean, a lot of the talk that makes religious people hard to, not hard to beat, but hard to argue with, is precisely that they'll say they're in a permanent crisis of faith. There is indeed a prayer, Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. Graham Greene says the great thing about being a Catholic was that it was a challenge to his unbelief. A lot of people live by keeping 2 sets of books. In fact, it's my impression. It's my impression, in fact, that a majority of the people I know who call themselves believers or people of faith do that all the time. I wouldn't say it was schizophrenia. That would be rude. But they're quite aware of the implausibility of what they say. They don't act on it when they go to the doctor or when they travel or anything of this kind. But in some sense, they couldn't be without it. But they're quite respectful of the idea of doubt. In fact, they try and build it in when they can.
Well, that's interesting then. And so when they are reciting the creed with its total sort of apparent conviction, is this a kind of mantra which is forcing themselves to overcome doubt by saying, yes, I do believe, because really I don't.
And of course, like the others, like their secular counterparts, they're glad other people believe it. It's an affirmation they wouldn't want other people not to be making.
Well, also there's this curious bootstrapping move, which I tried to point out in this recent On Faith piece. This idea that you start with the premise that belief without evidence is especially noble. I mean, this is the doctrine of faith. This is the parable of doubting Thomas. And so you start with that, and then you add this notion, which has come to me through various debates, that the fact that people can believe without evidence is itself a subtle form of evidence. I mean, we're kind of wired. Actually, Francis Collins, you mentioned, brings this up in his book. The fact that we have this intuition of God is itself some subtle form of evidence. And this is kind of kindling phenomenon where once you say it's good to start without evidence, the fact that you can is a subtle form of evidence, and then the demand for any more evidence is itself a kind of corruption of the intellect or a temptation or something to be guarded against. And you get a kind of perpetual motion machine of self-deception where you can get this thing up and running.
But they like the idea that it can't be demonstrated, because then there'd be nothing to be faithful about.
Right. That's the point of faith. Yeah.
If everyone had seen the resurrection and we all knew that we'd been saved by it, then we would be living in an unalterable system of belief, and it would have to be policed.
Right. Well,
and it would actually be, those of us who don't believe in it are very glad it's not true, because we think it would be horrible. Those who do believe it don't want it to be absolutely proven, so there can't be any doubt about it, because then there's no wrestling with the conscience, there are no dark nights of the soul.
It was a review of one of our books, I don't remember which, but it was exactly that point, that just, what a crass expectation on the part of atheists that there should be total evidence for this. I mean, there'd be much less magic. You know, if everyone was compelled to believe by too much evidence. Actually, this is Francis Collins. I'm sorry. This is Francis
a friend of mine, Canon Fenton of Oxford, actually, said that if the church validated the Holy Shroud of Turin, he personally would leave the ranks, because if they were doing things like that, he didn't want any part of it.
Right.
I didn't expect when I started off my book tour to be as lucky as I was. I mean, Jerry Falwell died in my first week on the road. That was amazing.
Yes, that was amazing luck.
I didn't expect Mother Teresa to come out as an atheist. Yes. But reading her letters, which I now have, it's rather interesting. She writes, I can't bring myself to believe any of this. She tells all her confessors, all her superiors, I can't hear a voice, I can't feel a presence, even in the Mass, even in the sacrament. It's no small thing. And they write back to us saying, that's good. Right. That's great. Right. You're suffering. It gives you a share in the crucifixion. It makes you part of Calvary.
Oh,
you can't beat an argument like that.
It's irrefutable. It's an unfalsifiable thing. No matter what you do, that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
The less you believe it, the more you're an illustration.
The more you prove it's true.
Yeah. Yes, and the struggle, the dark night of the soul, is the proof in itself. Yeah. So we just have to realize that these really are non-overlapping magisteria. We can't hope to argue with a mentality of this kind.
Wow. Well,
we can do just what you're doing now, and that is, we can say, look at this interesting bag of tricks that have evolved. Notice that they're circular, that they're self-sustaining, that they don't have any, that they could be about anything. And then you don't argue with them. You simply point out that these are not valid ways of thinking about anything, because you could use the very same tricks to sustain something which was manifestly fraudulent. And in fact, what fascinates me is that a lot of the tricks they have their counterparts with con artists. They use the very same forms of non-argument, the very same non sequiturs, and they make, for instance, a virtue out of trust. And as soon as you start exhibiting any suspicion of the con man he gets all hurt on you and plays the hurt feelings card and reminds you how wonderful taking it on faith is, and how I mean, there aren't any new tricks. These tricks have evolved over. And
one could add the production of bogus special effects as well, which is one of the things that completely convicts religion of being fraudulent.
Right. That's why I can't help it. I suffer with having to constantly point out people's psychology when I have these discussions, because when you hit a wall of fact and then you watch them do a gymnastic backflip out of it to try and explain, well, we have resurrections of all these other demigods at the same time of Jesus, all these other ascensions and miracles and things like that have been well known and popular for hundreds of years in the Greek and Roman world by which Christianity was born out of. You're going to tell me that has no bearing? Nope. You're looking at association. You think there's causation just because there's association. That's an association fallacy, and like there is nothing you can do to get them to see that. No, it matches the genre. It's in the same trope. It's in a cultic setting. It's a demigod born of a mortal woman and a divine father. They raised people from the dead. They themselves are raised from the dead. They themselves are ascended to heaven, etc., etc. Nope, nothing you could do. And it's like, damn, I love how Dennett just said that, you could get a known fraudulent case and watch the psychology and people behave this way and create these self-sustainable kind of circular tricks that keep them within the cult. It makes them like, oh, you're doubting? Oh, that's good. Oh, you're not doubting? Oh, that's good. Oh, you believe? Oh, that's good. You don't believe? Psh, we've got a place for you as well. Don't worry. You just join the cult. Like, no matter what, the cult lives off of anything. Hot, cold, up, down, left, right, in, out. Believe, non-belief, it doesn't matter. It's going to have some way to keep you in it and to keep you going.
The belief in the miraculous. The same people will say, well, Einstein felt a spiritual force in the universe, when he said the whole point about it is there are no miracles. There are no changes in the natural order. That's the miraculous thing. They're completely cynical about claiming him.
Well, the other thing worth pointing out,
almost the same breath,
is that these every religious person feels the same criticism of other people's faith that we do as atheists. I mean, they reject the pseudo miracles and the pseudo claims to certainty of others, and
I love this. This is so good.
See the confidence tricks in other people's faith. And they see it rather readily. Every Christian knows the Quran can't be the perfect word of the creator of the universe, and anyone who thinks it is hasn't read it closely enough, and it's just in this hermetically sealed discourse that isn't really being self-critical.
And that's right now more than ever. Christian apologists are really slamming the Quran right now. And good. We need more critical thought toward Islam, toward the Quran, especially when you can make cartoons of Jesus, you can do whatever you want and not get you're not getting stabbed in the eye, Salman Rushdie. You're not getting attacked. There's no fatwas on your life. I mean, like, I'm critical of Christianity all the time. It needs to be more. But the fact that they can't see it in their own eyes, that kind of the plank in their own eye, they suffer from the similar faith blindness that comes from their own cult.
And I think we're on very strong, we make a very strong case when we point that out, and point out also that whatever people are experiencing in church or in prayer, no matter how positive, the fact that Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and Christians are all experiencing it proves that it can't be a matter of the divinity of Jesus or the unique sanctity of the Quran.
I can imagine the wiggle room. No, but Jesus is making the Buddhists feel that way. No, but the Jesus is making... And it goes on and on. But no, I agree. I think Sam's hitting the nail on the head.
Because there's 17 different ways of getting there. Yeah.
By the way, on that, a tiny point. It's not. I hope not a digression. It's useful bearing that in mind too when you get, as I did this morning on ABC News, the question. Well, wouldn't you say religion did some good in the world? I mean, there are good people. You never don't get that argument. And by the way, there's no reason why one shouldn't. You say, well, yes, I have indeed heard it said that Hamas provides social services in Gaza. And I've even heard it said that Louis Farrakhan's group gets young black men in prison off drugs.
How much more fitting than right now with what we're seeing done by Hamas, especially now that Israel's moved out of the region, to show just the kind of behavior Hamas in and of themselves does as a terrorist organization. Like, that's pretty wild that they've recognized this kind of behavior from this group for a long time.
I don't know if it's true. I'm willing to accept it might be.
Right.
It doesn't alter the fact that the one is a militarized terrorist organization with a fanatical anti-Semitic ideology, and the second is a racist crackpot cult.
Yeah. And the other...
I have no doubt that Scientology gets people off drugs too. But
they do get people off drugs for sure.
My insistence always with these people is if you will claim it for one, you must accept it for them all.
And the other move you can make there,
if you don't, it's flat out dishonest.
You can.
Bingo. Been saying this for a long time. Resurrections, all the miracle claims, the different types of eyewitness. There are, just so you know, there are other eyewitness testimonies in the ancient world of other figures performing miracles and divine ascensions and appearing on Roman roads after they were long gone and dead. And if you don't accept those, but you only accept yours, well, you're a hypocrite. You're clearly dishonest and you're not being consistent. And they'll go, no, we need to do it case-by-case basis, and we could rule those out. No, there are 3 separate sources that say that Vespasian healed a blind man and a withered man's hand and had another phenomena take place where he saw someone that was supposedly 70 to 100 miles away at the very time when he was in the temple, in the Serapean temple in Alexandria, Egypt. Point is, there are 3 educated historians who document this material, but Christians don't accept this. They don't usually recognize this guy's ability to heal and do miracles and stuff. And the ones that do, I think, are just gullibly trying to get this. They see the problem and they're trying to be as consistent as they can, but they don't accept all the miracles that we see in the world. I mean, they clearly see that there are fake ones within their own tradition, but there are others that they can't falsify, and they don't believe that they're true. And it's like, oh, okay. So they're not really open to the supernatural while they call us closed off to it.
Invent an ideology which, by your mere invention in that moment, is obviously untrue, which would be quite useful if propagated to billions. I mean, you could say, this is my new religion. Teach people to demand that your children study science and math and economics and all of our terrestrial disciplines to the best of their abilities. And if they don't persist in those efforts, they'll be tortured after death by 17 demons. This would be extremely useful. I mean, it would be far more useful than Islam, propagated to billions. And yet, what are the chances that the 17 demons exist? 0.
There's a slipperiness too, isn't there, about one way of speaking to sophisticated intellectuals and theologians and another way of speaking to congregations and, above all, children. And I think we've all of us been accused of going after the easy targets of the Jerry Falwells of this world and ignoring the sophisticated professors of theology. And I mean, I don't know what you feel about that, but one of the things I feel is that the sophisticated professors of theology will say one thing to each other and to intellectuals generally, but will say something totally different to a congregation. They'll talk about miracles, they'll talk about...
Well, they won't talk to a congregation.
Well, archbishops will.
Yes, but when the sophisticated theologians try to talk to the preachers won't have any of it.
Well, that's true.
I mean, you got to realize that sophisticated theology is like stamp collecting. It's a very specialized thing, and only a few people do it.
And a negligible influence.
They take in their own laundry, and they get all excited about some very arcane details, and their own religions pay almost no attention to what they're saying. A little bit of it does, of course, filter in, but it always gets beefed up again for general consumption, because what they say in their writings, at least from my experience, is eye-glazing, mind-twisting, very subtle things which have no particular bearing on life.
Oh, no, I must insist. I must say a good word here for Professor Alistair McGrath, who in his attack on Richard said it's not true, as we've always been told, and most Christians believe, that Tertullian said, credo quia absurdum, I believe it because it's ridiculous. No, it turns out, I've checked this now, though I don't know this from McGrath, that in fact Tertullian said the impossibility of it is the thing that makes it the most believable. That's a worthwhile distinction, I think. And very useful for training one's mind. Very useful for training one's mind in the fine points. It's the likelihood, in other words, that it could have been made up, is diminished by the incredibility of it. Who would try and invent something that was that unbelievable?
You make a very good point.
That's so good. That's so funny.
That's I think, a debate perfectly well worth having. What I say to these people is this: you're sending your email or your letter to the wrong address. Everyone says, let's not judge religion by its fundamentalists. All right. Take the Church of England. Two of whose senior leaders recently said that the floods in North Yorkshire were the result of homosexual behaviour. Not in North Yorkshire, presumably, but probably in London, I think they're thinking. So, but
God's aim is a little off.
One of these, the Bishop of Carlisle, is apparently about to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, this is extraordinary. This is supposed to be the mild and reflective and thoughtful and rather, troubled church, making fanatical pronouncements. Well, I want to hear what Alistair McGrath is going to write to the Bishop of Carlisle, not to me. Is he going to say, my Lord Bishop, do you not realize what a complete idiot you're making of yourself and of our church? Did he do this? If he did it in private, I'm not impressed. He has to say it in public.
The Bishop
Why are
of
they
Carlisle
telling me
backtracked,
I will judge the church by the statements of its bishops? I think I'm allowed to.
Yeah. But the other thing is that, never mind about the academic theologians, bishops and vicars, who will attack us for taking scriptures, or for accusing people of taking scriptures literally. And of course we don't believe the book of Genesis literally. And yet they do preach about what Adam and Eve did, as though they did exist, as though they're somehow, it's a sort of license to talk about things which they know and anybody of any sophistication knows is fiction, and yet they will treat their congregations, their sheep, as though they did exist, as though they were factual, and a huge number of those congregations actually think they did exist.
Yeah.
Can you imagine any one of these preachers saying, as such a topic is introduced, this is a sort of theoretical fiction. It's not true, but it's a very fine metaphor. No, they're just
They
not
kind of,
going.
after the fact, imply that that's what they expect you to.
I imagine after these four have hit the road over the last decade, there are theologian preachers now that probably do these things that they're saying they don't. Now, they're still the minority, but I imagine that they are more open about these things. I imagine now that these guys are exposing it, and how do you win this fight? People are going to start jumping ship unless you end up just accepting the facts of what these guys keep saying, and it is apparent that they're on the right track. These guys are hitting the nail on the head. They're more accurate with the data.
To know.
Yes, but they would never announce it. They would
there's another point there, is that they never admit how they have come to stop taking it literally, because you have all these people criticizing us for our crass literalism. We're as fundamentalist as the fundamentalists, and yet these moderates don't admit how they have come to be moderate. What does moderation consist of? It consists of having lost faith in all of these propositions, or half of them, because of just the hammer blows of science and secular politics.
Of the crass literalism of the critics.
Yeah, religion has lost its mandate on 1,000 questions, and moderates tend to argue that this is somehow a triumph of faith, that faith is somehow enlightening, whereas it's been enlightened from the outside. It has been, it has been intruded upon by
On
science.
that point that I was wanting to raise myself about our own so-called fundamentalism. There's a cleric in Southwark, the first person I saw attacking you and I in print as being just as fundamentalist as those who blew up the London Underground. Do you remember his name?
I don't remember his name.
I'm sorry, I don't remember. He's a very senior Anglican cleric in the Diocese of Southwark. I went on the BBC with him, just entre parenthèses, I'll say, when I'd said, how can you call your congregation a flock? Doesn't that say everything about your religion, that you think they're sheep? He said, well, actually, I used to be a pastor in New Guinea, where there aren't any sheep. Well, of course, there are a lot of places where there are no sheep. Gospel's quite hard to teach, as a result. We found out what the most important animal to the locals was, and I remember very well my local bishop rising to ask the Divine One to behold these swine, his new congregation. But this is the man who deliberately...
Oh, there's no sheep, so we're going to call them pigs, since we have pigs.
Does a thing like that. That's as cynical as you could wish, and as adaptive as the day is long. And he says that we who doubt it are as fundamentalists as people who blow up their fellow citizens on the London Underground. it's unconscionable. Thus, I don't really mind being accused of ridiculing or treating with contempt people like that. I just frankly have no choice. I have the faculty of humor, and some of it has an edge to it. I'm not going to repress that for the sake of politeness of people.
Would you think that it would be good to make a distinction between the professionals and the amateurs? I share your impatience with the officials of the churches, the people whose this is their professional life. It seems to me they know better.
Right.
The congregations don't know better because it's maintained that they should not know better. I do get very anxious about ridiculing the beliefs of the flock because of the way in which they have ceded to their leaders. They've delegated authority to their leaders, and they presume their leaders are going to do it right. So I think in this, who stands up and says the buck stops here?
Right.
This is a very interesting conversation. I didn't know this gold mine of a conversation even existed. Seriously, what do you think about what was said so far? I mean, there's so much here. I like Dennett's last point here. We got to go for the snake's head for the rest of the body and to follow along, because how many Christians online look to the known apologist as their heroes? Literally, they're Heracles wearing a club and a cape, and they're out there fighting the bad guys, the skeptics, the Muslims, you name it. Or Muslims who look to their, sheiks and their expert exegetes and all that kind of stuff. Like, it never ends. There's always an apologist that they like to sit on their back and defend us, you're the defender. But if you knock them out, then there's a chance that the sheep might follow. If you show their shepherd is a fraud or making up shit. So what are your thoughts about what was said so far? We will be picking up and continuing this. I really enjoy these little bits here, doing piece by piece, because there's a lot to dissect in what they're saying, and I'd like to hear from you in the comments section. So please start the chatter down below in the comments, subscribe, and check that bell. Make sure you hit all when you do, so you get notified every time. I don't know why YouTube has it where you don't just press the bell and it automatically notifies everybody. No, you have to press the bell, subscribe and press the bell and hit all, or else you don't get notified. It's so weird. And around 90% of you watching haven't subscribed. Please consider doing so that you're part of the family. Like the video, comment your thoughts, comment. That makes engagement. YouTube likes that. Again, thank you for all the recommendations. I'll try my best to knock those out over time as we get through each and every one of these videos, and I really, really want to just say thank you to everyone who's here. If you want to take it further, you can. We have a Patreon. You can join. I give early access to my other channel, and of course, any videos that I couldn't publish here, because I have a couple already that I couldn't make public on YouTube here. On the reaction channel, I've put it on there. And then I also have membership options. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and until next time, see you then.